श्री स्वामीनारायण भगवाननी जय अक्षर पुरुषोत्तम महाराजनी जय गुणातीतानंद स्वामी महाराजनी जय प्रमुख स्वामी महाराजनी जय महंत स्वामी महाराजनी जय प्रमुख स्वामी महाराज शताब्दी महोत्सवनी जय. We're covering Pramukh Swami Maharaj's Jivan Charitra Part 1, and in our Abhyas Kram we've come to the final section, L, which covers the last 50 pages of Part 1 of Bappa's Jivan Charitra. And last time we saw, covering 1970, Yogi Maharaj and Pramukh Swami had just returned from their Videsh Dharma Yatra, first from Africa and then from London, reaching Mumbai on the 7th of July. And Yogi Bappa, Pramukh Swami and the Sadhus were going from place to place, Mumbai to Vadodara, to Bochasan, to Atladra, Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar, Limri, and the group had reached Sarangpur. And then from Sarangpur, Hari Mandirs in a couple of places for Mailas, and they'd reach Bhavnagar, and then from Bhavnagar they were due to go to Maua. So that's where we'll start our prasangs from today. So L15, a prasang that Hakka Bappa once said. This was many years after Yogi Bappa passed away. So Hakka Bappa must have mentioned once, talking about Yogi Bappa returning from his foreign tour. So Hakka Bappa mentioned that in 1970, when Yogi Maharaj he returned from Pardesh, from the foreign tour, then everything was taken care of by Swami Shri. ત્યારે બધી જ વ્યવસ્થા સ્વામી શ્રી કરતા, meaning Pramukh Swami. From Swagat, the welcome in, the transportation, the van vyavastha, uttarani vyavastha, accommodation, sabhani vyavastha, the sabhas, meeting the guests, looking after the Hari Bhaktas, etc. And then Yogi Bappa, sorry, not Yogi Bappa, Hakka Bappa used this word, કે દરેકમાં whole soul સ્વામી શ્રી જ કરતા. દરેકમાં whole soul Swami Shri Jhata. So at that time, when Swami heard this, he was like a bit annoyed, a little bit upset. He stopped Hakka Bapu and he said, "Ke look, au bolai? How can you possibly say something like this? Yogi Ji Maharaj hoy, tyare apne whole soul shana. Ke how can we be the whole and soul when Yogi Bappa's around? જે કંઈ થાય છે તે તેઓ ઠીક થાય છે કે whatever happened was only because of him." So એ પ્રમાણે પણ after so many years of Yogi Bappa passing away to Akshardham, Bapaની bhakti, Bapa's sevak bhav, Bapa's das bhav, there was not the slightest withering in his devotion. And then Bappa, as we heard, had already gone to Maua to make the arrangements. And then Maua Ma, the mandir was opened in Maua. This was a small Hari Mandir at the birthplace of Bhagat Ji Maharaj. Again, a lot of efforts had been put into the making of that mandir by Pramukh Swami himself in the time of Yogi Bappa. So Yogi Bappa did the Pratishta in Maua. And then from Maua, they went to other places, Bhadra, not the Bhadra, not Gunatit Nagar, but another Bhadra named Maua, and Amreli, Khamba, etc. Yogi Swami also went to Dari with Man Swami and Santos for darshan. Yogi Bappa obviously didn't go to Dari, but Swami Shri went for darshan. Again, he was planning for a Hari Mandir in Dari as well, at the birthplace of Yogi Ji Maharaj. And then they finally, the whole group, they reached Gondal. This was to be one of the final destinations for Yogi Ji Maharaj. So in Gondal, a grand Shobha Yatra had been organized, because the whole city of Gondal was looking forward to having this Jogi of Gondal, and the residents of Gondal couldn't contain their joy that their Jogi had gone to Pardesh, he'd gone to Africa, he'd gone to London, and he was a Mahant of Akshar Mandir actually in 1934 when it was opened, and he had glorified our Dharma, Hindu Dharma, and glorified the Mahima of Bhagwan Swaminarayan all over the world. So everyone was so happy to welcome Yogi Maharaj back to Gondal. So that was like almost the end of this Vicharan for Yogi Maharaj. And then he was to stay in Gondal for like 3 months before he had to go to Mumbai. વચ્ચે ગયા હતા એક બે નાની જગ્યાએ, but otherwise he was in Gondal most of the time. વચ્ચે ભાદરા અને રાજકોટ જઈ આવ્યા હતા, and then he obviously returned to Gondal. So during this Nagar Yatra in Gondal, Mahaprasadની વ્યવસ્થા પણ હતી after the Nagar Yatra finished. Now, Swami Shri himself, Pramukh Swami, had already decided with Gnan Prasad Swami, who was doing the vyavastha for the food, कि આપણે 12 मन खिचड़ी बनावानी for all the Hari Bhaktas and all the people who come for the reception, thinking that would be enough. But when Gnan Prasad Swami saw how many people were in the Shobha Yatra and આટલા બધા માણસો જમશે અહીંયા, so he thought that, like rasoi khudse, because Yogi Bappa himself સામેથી જાહેરાત કરી કે બધા જમીને જ જજો, make sure you all eat. એટલે બધાને આમંત્રણ આપી દીધું. એટલે જ્ઞાન પ્રસાદ સ્વામી thought કે આ રસોઈ તો ખોટી જશે, there's nothing that we can do last minute. So he retreated literally into the corner of the kitchen, and he sat there like lost and thinking that, what will we do now? કે હવે શું થશે? અને બધું ભગવાનના ભરોસે છોડીને ત્યાં બેસી ગયા. And Swami Shri, no one came to call him, but Swami Shri saw this. He found out કે આ બેસી ગયા છે. And immediately he approached Gnan Prasad Swami. Gnan Prasad Swami was a young sadhu at that time. He had just taken Diksha 1 year earlier, 1 or 2 years earlier. And Bappa immediately said to him, કે ભલા માણસ, કે આપણી પાસે આટલા બધા માણસ છે, સામાન પણ છે, અને બધી જ વસ્તુ છે, એમાં ગભરાઈ શું જવાનું? કાંઈ ના હોય તો શીરો પણ શેકી નખાય ને. So Swami is explaining to him, like, what are you worried about? Again, this is directly નથી લખ્યું જીવન ચૈત્ર, but Swami is going to the time of Shastriji Maharaj. કે શાસ્ત્રી Maharaj had nota nana, nota mana, nota dana. He had nothing. So Bappa is saying, we have so many people, we have the resources, we have all the items. What are you worried about, And okay, you can't make khichdi, to shiro to banavi shakaય ne tatkalik. And then these words of inspiration immediately dissipated the fears of this young sadhu. And he got up and he started preparing khichdi, which obviously takes longer than shiro. But, whenever he experienced a lack of confidence, this one prasang alone was enough to guide Gnan Prasad Swami. Now, obviously, we all know that later he became the Kothari of Bhadra Mandir. Pachi Pramukh Swami Maharaj also appointed him as the Kothari of Gondal Mandir in 1981 for many years. Now, to look after Gondal, which was one of the biggest mandirs at that time, Pachi to Akshardham ne બધું થયું, but that was like their biggest mandir, or the mandir with the most visitors out of all our mandirs in BAPS around that time. So looking after everything there at that time was a massive challenge. But these words of Bappa, he remembered them. Okay, we should never worry. Okay, we have the resources. Even if we don't have the resources, don't worry. આપણે ગમે તે રીતે વ્યવસ્થા કરવાની, but just sitting back and doing nothing, that doesn't solve anything. So just these few words of wisdom, they may have been brief, but their relevance remained eternal. And this prasang has been given to us in the Jivan Charitra. From Gondal, Yogi Bappa, he went to Rajkot. Again, Swami did a parayan on the Hari Lila Kalpatru for 5 days. And then the group, they went to Dangra. Again, a 3-day parayan was held in Dangra. In the Jivan Charitra, there's mention of Dangra. It's a village in the middle of nowhere. And there's a prasang ke Yogi Bappa obviously utare nata ashe, but Swami Shri Mansai Kothai Swami Ishwar Swami, but there's a river there called the river Gel. Gela Nadi nahi, but river Gel. And they had a bath there in the morning, early morning, and then after bathing they all sat on the river bank and they performed their morning puja amidst an ambience of serenity and beauty to the soothing sound of flowing water. There was a beautiful waterfall. And the sadhus, they sat engaged in worship. Mahatma puja karta hata. That was also a sight for the gods. And pachi Dangra thi Jaiva gaya. And Jaiva thi pachi they went to Bhadra. So Bhadra to Gamru kevai. But even there, the villagers, Khub Bhakti Bhav Purvak, they arranged for a procession, a welcome procession for Yogi Ji Maharaj, Pramukh Swami, and the Santos. So going on to L18, once in Bhadra, Vaishnavat was being read, section 3, number 18. And એમાં વાસનાની વાત આવે છે. So what is the definition of vasana? Yogi Bappa, in his own novel way, he explained what vasana is. He asked the question, okay, look, if we're feeling sleepy and Pramukh Swami is doing katha, then what should one do? Should one sleep or should one sit in the katha? Then Yogi Bappa explained, okay, if we feel, okay, let's go to sleep, then that is known as vasana. E vasana kevai. So in this way, he would remember Swami not just while, in his dreams or while doing bhajan or while eating, પણ કથા કરતા હોય ત્યારે પણ આ રીતે સહેજે સહેજે he would remember Pramukh Swami. મહિમાની વાત તો હરિભક્ત અને સંતોને કરતા જ હતા. Another example in Bhadra is like અત્યારે જે ground floor જે છે ને એ વખતે પણ the mandir had been opened in 1969 where the auto is, where Gunatan Swami was born. There's a Sabha Mandap, a very small Sabha Mandap, Santashram no Bhagche actually. And the youths, they performed a ras there on the ground floor hall of the mandir. ઉપર નમાર ઉપર મંદિર હતું, હવે તો નથી, હવે તો શિખરબદ્ધ મંદિર મોટું થઈ ગયું છે. And seeing the devotion of the youths and કેવી રીતે તૈયારી કરી હતી, યોગી બાપા ખૂબ રાજી થયા હતા. As soon as the ras was complete, Yogi Bappa, he made a comment. Ras રમતી વખતે સાક્ષાત શ્રીજી મહારાજ પધાર્યા હતા. So Yogi Bappa must have seen that. But Yogi Bappa then made a comment કે તેવું આ પ્રમુખ સ્વામી જોતા હતા. It's not like after the ras happened or while it was happening, Pramukh Swami ran to Yogi Bappa and said, okay, look, I saw Sriji Maharaj. Sakshat Sriji Maharaj darshan મને થયા. But Yogi Bappa of his own accord said this, કે રાસ રમતી વખતે સાક્ષાત શ્રીજી મહારાજ પધાર્યા હતા તેવું આ પ્રમુખ સ્વામી જોતા હતા. So even here we can see that Yogi Bappa was explaining Pramukh Swami's glory. That Swami Shri was someone who was in constant communion with God. ભગવાનના અખંડ દર્શન કરતા હતા. તો એ પ્રમાણે પણ in Bhadra, Yogi Bappa explained this Mahima of Pramukh Swami. Now in Bhadra, a prasang that આપણા જૂના સંતોષ also tell us, okay, this is Pramukh Swami. Remember, Swami is 49 years old in 1970. Now in Bhadra, ઘણી વખત યોગી બાપા જ્યારે when he's sleeping in the afternoon આરામ કરતા હોય તો ઘણા સંતો, the newly initiated sadhus who had come from Africa, and some of the Haribhaktas, they would go to the river Und. ભાદરામાં જ છે અને બહુ સરસ ત્યાં મજા આવે નાવાની ને પ્રસાદીની જગ્યા પણ છે અને ત્યાં બનિયન ટ્રી પણ છે અને ત્યાંથી પણ લોકો આ રીતે જેમ મહારાજ કૂદકા મારતા તો યુવકો કૂદકા પણ કદાચ મારતા હશે. તો સ્વામી શ્રી would sometimes go with them as well. And they would enjoy bathing in the river. Lots and lots of water. And એમાં પછી, બધા excited થઈ જાય કે let's do something, let's have some fun. So, some of the young sadhus or the young yuvaks, they thought of building a human pyramid in the water. A pyramid not 3 layers hoy. So on the lowest layer, you need someone who's quite hefty, થોડુંક strong shoulders hoy. And તો પછી you can have a proper pyramid, otherwise you can and this is like 5-7 જણા નીચે હોય, પછી એની ઉપર બીજા 3-4-5 જણા હોય ને એની ઉપર બીજા 3 જણા હોય. So Swami Shri would be on the lower layer and then people would climb upwards by placing their feet on Swami Shri's shoulders. Now બીજા પણ lower layer માં હોય, other santos કે બીજા હરિભક્ત કે યુવકો હોય, but everyone wanted to climb on Swami Shri's shoulders. So they could later cherish that memory that, we climbed up putting our feet on Pramukh Swami's shoulders. So એ પ્રમાણે પણ આ રીતે, but Swami Shri would enjoy this with the Hari Bhaktas and the young sadhus. આમ તો બધા young sadhus હતા, આપણે કહીએ ને ભક્તિનંદન સ્વામી ને શ્રીજી સ્વરૂપ સ્વામી, નિષ્કામ સ્વામી, યોગી ચરણ સ્વામી, he'd taken Diksha a few years earlier. આ બધા young સંતોષ પણ એ વખતે હતા. So after forming a pyramid, now this would be 3 human layers. One of the young sadhus hoy, ke light sadhus hoy, someone like Yogi Charan Swami, who was only 15 years old at the time, આ બધા શ્રીજી સ્વામી અને ભક્તિનંદન સ્વામી અને નિષ્કામ સ્વામી અને બધા અક્ષર પુરુષ સ્વામી આ બધા આફ્રિકાથી બધા આવ્યા હતા. આપણા અક્ષર વિહારી સ્વામી પણ હશે. They were all bathing in the river Und. And એ પ્રમાણે પછી someone would climb on top of the pyramids. સજાનંદ સ્વામી મહારાજની જય, અક્ષરપુષ્ટ મહારાજની જય, અને એ પ્રમાણે આ રીતે આનંદ કરતા. પછી they would jump into the water. Sometimes they would fall like a pack of cards. તો એ રીતે પણ ગમ્મત કરતા. Now Bappa, he's on the bottom. He's on the lowermost layer. So he has to bear the burden of the weight right until the very end. But Bappa never felt, oh, Sansano Pramukh Chu, what am I doing here? He happily continued the fun and he pleased all these sadhus. They would stand on his shoulders. Some of the sadhus, Bhaktivinoda Swami ek wakat prasang kayo to, they would stand on Pramukh Swami's shoulders and then they would jump from his shoulders and dive into the river Und. To e pramane, to see all these sadhus enjoying and playing on their father's shoulders. To e pan apane ખ્યાલ આવે કે Swami was so high spiritually, yet he remained so down to earth. એટલે લખ્યું છે કે ગમ્મત ગંભીર, કે he was profound, yet he could play with the youngest of sadhus. તો એ પ્રમાણે he wasn't just offering his shoulder in physical support, but the world was later to understand that he offered his shoulder in spiritual support for all of us to step on it and be uplifted. And e pramane, despite his seriousness, despite being so profound, Bappa could also mix with all these young sadhus. Going on to L20, Bhadrati Pacha, the whole group reached Gondal. And Yogi Bappa, he stayed back in Gondal, but Swami Shri and some of the santos, they went to Junagadh for darshan. And pachi, when they got back to Gondal, Yogi Bappa and Pramukh Swami, they traveled to Rajkot. And ત્યાં પણ એ રાજકોટમાં welcome ceremony પણ થઈ. And then they again reached back to Gondal. Now Gondalma, a special cabin had been prepared for Yogi Bappa. We know that Yogi Bappa's health wasn't brilliant. Thandi na lage, garmi na lage, dur na ude. E pramane, there was a glass cabin which was prepared in Gondal. So e wakate Yogi Bappa had also instructed ke also place Pramukh Swami's seat inside the cabin. Ke Pramukh Swami mate pan asan tamare રાખવું. Pramukh Swami mate ગાદી પાથરી દેજો અને મારી બાજુમાં. અને સૌ બધા હરિભક્તને પણ હરિભક્તને તેઓના દર્શન થાય. So we can see that Swami Shri was being told by Yogiji Maharaj કે તમારે પણ મારી બાજુમાં બેસવું. And obviously Swami was not keen કે Yogi Bappaના દર્શન બધાને થાય. That's the main thing. But Yogi Bappa would tell the Sevak Santos to make sure that Pramukh Swami is next to me. And that year in Gondal, it was going to be a very special celebration. Sharapunam was going to happen on the 14th of October. E દિવસે 29 યુવાનોને દીક્ષા આપવાની હતી, which Yogi Bappa later gave. And his Sastrimani Murti, Arasni Murti, was also going to be consecrated in Pratishtha થવાની હતી behind the Akshaderi. And then Amati ખ્યાલ આવે કે keeping Pramukh Swami with himself in the glass cabin, Yogi Bappa was keeping him for pratishtas, for diksha, for any celebrations, utsav samaya hoy, any sabhas, koi haribhakta ave, koi special vastu કંઈક discuss કરવાની હોય, koi મહેમાનો આવે, તો એ પ્રમાણે પણ it was very obvious કે Yogi Bappa was keeping Pramukh Swami in the forefront. A prasang that happened in Gondal also again explains the love that Bappa had for the sadhus. Emne pan dukhi nota karwa. So what happened? We heard about the Ras in Bhadra. Now, the youths that had performed that Ras, Yogi Bappa khub raji thaya tha. And that very night in Bhadra, a few sadhus, they asked Yogi Bappa, ke tame khub raji thaya. You were very pleased on seeing this Ras. So can we also perform this Ras? Ke sadhu Ras kari shake? They asked Yogi Bappa. So Yogi Bappa himself said, yes, kai wando nahi, tame tayari karo. So these young sadhus, when they got back to Gondal, they were preparing to do a Ras. Now obviously when there were kishos or baraks, kelka Ras karta ashe, Africa ma karta ashe ke wherever. So they used to practice on the banks of the river Gondli, je ghat je che ne, because there was no other space in Gondal for them to practice. And they used to practice at night. Akho program pati gyo hoy, Yogi Bappa sui gaya hoy, pachi obviously they get time. And Swami Shri himself would often go and visit these sadhus, practice to see them practice. And Ematipan, they used to get a lot of encouragement. Now, 5 days before the actual celebration of Sharapunam, which was celebrated on 14th of October, Yogi Bappa, he calls these sadhus. And he says ke, tame practice karo cho bada. To show me how you practice. Mare jowu che. So then in the Sabha Mandap, they arranged an asan for Yogi Bappa. And these sadhus, they started doing the ras. They did the whole ras. And seeing the ras, Yogi Bappa એટલા બધા રાજી થઈ ગયા ને, અને બધાને ખૂબ ખૂબ ધબ્બા આપ્યા, ખૂબ રાજી પો દર્શાવ્યો, and these sadhus were extra charged. But then what came next, hit them like a bombshell. Yogi Bappa શું કહ્યું કે પ્રેક્ટિસ સારી થઈ છે. You've practiced very well. પણ હવે રાસ અહીં થઈ ગયો. The ras has been performed. તો શરદ પૂનમના દિવસે ચોકમાં એટલે સભામાં કરવાની જરૂર નથી. You don't need to perform it again on the day of Sharad Punam. So like these sadhus were quite shocked, like we're supposed to do it for Sharad Punam, Okay, fine, Yogi Bappa એ કહ્યું છે. But then Yogi Bappa added કે જાહેરમાં સંતો રાસ ન રમે. જાહેરમાં એટલે ત્યાં મોટો ઉત્સવ થવાનો હતો. So Yogi Bappa's statement, આપણે કહીએ છીએ ને કે ઉત્સાહ પર પાણી ફરી વળ્યું. It dampened their enthusiasm, their excitement. And, many of them lost their sleep as well. Not because everybody practiced Kari and Amnitem, but they wanted to actually please Yogi Bappa by doing the ras on the birthday of Gunatitanand Swami. And so some of these sadhus, they went to Pramukh Swami. Mohe to tumahi Prabhu eka adhara. Je bhajan apne gaye છે ને, to Swami Shri was their resort. And they approached Swami Shri and told him what had happened. And Swami, he was a master at understanding people. And he immediately understood the emotions of these young sadhus. He didn't suddenly start giving them gnan. Ke na Yogi Bappa e કહ્યું છે એટલે બસ આપણે forget it na amne tem. He said, at least let's ask Yogi Bappa. કંઈ વાંધો નહીં. આપણે એક વખત પૂછવામાં કંઈ વાંધો નથી. So Pramukh Swami consoled them. He said, કાલે યોગીજી માં જાગે ને એટલે આપણે વાત કરીશું. So Swami was also a support to these young sadhus in times of difficulty. The following day, when Yogi Bappa woke up, Pramukh Swami, he went to Yogi Bappa. And he said to Yogi Bappa, he requested to him, હાથ જોડીને, કે બાપા, સંતોએ પ્રેક્ટિસ કરી છે, તો ભલે રાસ રમે. શ્રીજી મહારાજની સાથે સંતો પણ રાસ રમતા હતા ને. So this statement of Pramukh Swami, his request to Yogi Bappa, okay, they've been practicing and it would be good if they can play ras for the Sharapunam Utsav. As soon as Yogi Bappa heard this, he consented, and it was Swami who was requesting, and Yogi Bappa, he waved his green flag. And when the sadhus heard about this, they were so happy. And then on the 14th of October, Yogi Bappa, he was right in the middle. We see photos of Sastri Maharaj and Hari Bhakta પણ રાસ કરતા હોય છે. તો અહીંયા આ રીતે Yogi Bappa was seated in the middle, and પછી everyone did ras around Yogiji Maharaj. આ રીતે સારંગપુરમાં પણ છેલ્લે થયું હતું 2015-2016 માં કે આપણી વારી છે ને સારંગપુરમાં. તો I think it was Sharapunam as well. So 2015, તો ત્યાં Bappa was there in the center અને બધા સંતોએ પણ ત્યાં રાસ લીધો હતો. તો આ રીતે in Gondal, and the ભજન એ વખતે ગવાયું હતું કે જોયા મેં તો યોગીજી મહારાજ અમને ઘેલા ઘેલા બનાવ્યા. તો એ રીતે યોગી બાપા પણ ખૂબ રાજી થયા. And everyone was transported to the time of Maharaj. Maharaj had played ras with the santos in Panchara, in Gadra, in Saranpur and other places as well. And after this ras, everyone, they thanked Swami Shri profusely, who had arranged for this. Otherwise, it was like a no-go after they did the first performance in the Sabha Mandap. And then Swami Shri's love for the sadhus. Again, a few sadhus were then, after Sharapunam, they were going to go back to Mumbai. And to bid them farewell, Bappa, he went all the way to Rajkot. He didn't need to. He made all the arrangements, but he didn't have to go himself. But just like a mother sees off her children, he went to Rajkot, spent the night in Rajkot. They were going to board the early morning train. He went to the train station and dropped them off. And e pramane pan, he gave them this soup. While in Gondal, Yogi Bappa, some of the newly initiated sadhus, we can see the photo of Swami Yogi Ji Maharaj giving Diksha to Akshar Vihari Swami, Kamlesh by that time. This is the Parshadi Diksha. So, in Gondal, Yogi Bappa had given this Diksha on the 14th of October on Sharapunam. And in Gondal, Yogi Bappa, with a Goshti with the sadhus, he once said, okay, we want to initiate 700 sadhus. And Haribhakt has also said કે બાપા સત્સંગ ઘણો વધ્યો છે માટે સાધુની જરૂર પડે. તો યોગી બાપા said કે 700 સાધુ કરવા છે, હવે પ્રમુખ સ્વામી સાધુ કરશે. આપણે આફ્રિકાના યુવકોને દીક્ષા આપી દીધી, હવે સાધુઓ વધી જશે. તો જો even at that time યોગી બાપા said કે હવે પ્રમુખ સ્વામી સાધુઓ કરશે. So before he had passed away, Yogi Bappa said very clearly that Pramukh Swami will now take on this responsibility. He said the same thing for mandirs. Padranu mandir thayu tyare Yogi Bappa e કહ્યું હતું કે આ મારું છેલ્લું મંદિર, meaning it was his last શિખરબદ્ધ મંદિર, and he said હવે ના મંદિરો પ્રમુખ સ્વામી કરશે. So મંદિર હોય કે સાધુ હોય કે સત્સંગનું કાર્ય હોય, Yogi Bappa was pointing the way as his successor for Pramukh Swami. Going on to L23. Now, Swami Shri had spent 108 days in Africa with Yogi Ji Maharaj, and then 45 days in the UK with Yogi Ji Maharaj. After returning to India on the 7th of July, another 3.5 months with Yogi Ji Maharaj. And now the festival of Annakut was approaching. And Swami Shri was scheduled to go to Sarampur because Swami used to celebrate this Utsav in Sarampur every year. Yogi Bappa would celebrate in Gondal. Now everyone, they wanted Swami to celebrate Annakut in Gondal. You know, it's literally like they had fallen in love with him and, you know, please don't leave us. Now Yogi Bappa was a guru, but this is how Bappa had won everyone's hearts through his Dasatva Bhakti. Yogi Bappa માં જ બધાને જોડતા. But Bappa was loved by all. Everyone enjoyed his company because of his nature. He lived happily with all, regardless of their age or status. આપણે પ્રસંગો પણ જોયા. He never acted, you know, using his authority or his status. He never had any expectations. No one ever had to worry. You know, he wasn't high maintenance. You have to worry about his facilities. ના ના થયું હોય તો આ પ્રશ્ન થશે ને આમ ને તેમ. કદાચ કોઈ કે નાની મોટી ભૂલ કરી હોય તો પણ, you know, there wouldn't be like, you know, ekdam fearful ke હવે શું થશે ને આમ ને તેમ. Even though Bappa was quite serious. So, and he would find the solution to any issue. So everyone loved to have Swami Shri around them. So Bappa had earned every sadhu's love and respect, and therefore everyone wanted Swami Shri to celebrate the festival of Annakut that year in Gondal with Yogi Bappa. Remember, this is the last Annakut to be celebrated by Yogi Bappa in Gondal. This is in 1970. So these sadhus, they were quite, you know, pushy એટલે insistent ke Bappa to Swami Shri ke you must stay. So Swami Shri said, look, તમે કહો છો, but I only have to do what Yogi Bappa tells me to do. It's not your words, but Yogi Bappa's words which are important. So Bappa said કે તમે બધા વાત કરો છો, પણ મારે બાપા કહે તેમ જ કરવાનું હોય. શાસ્ત્રીજી મહારાજની મરજી છે કે યોગી બાપાની આજ્ઞા જીવનભર રાખશો. તો આજ સુધી એમ જ કર્યું છે. જો બાપા explained, I've done this. So far I have done so. માટે ફેરફાર ન થાય. Therefore it cannot be changed. This was Pramukh Swami. Focused on Shastriji Maharaj, focused on Yogi Ji Maharaj. And then the Santos, they said, okay, but look, what if Bappa says, meaning Yogi Bappa says, what would you do? So e વખતે પણ Swami was very clear. Swami said, if Bappa says, then how can I say no? Bappa કહે તો ક્યાં ના છે? મોટરમાં જતા હોઈએ ને અડધે રસ્તે કોઈ કહે કે બાપા બોલાવે છે, બાપા meaning Yogi Bappa, તો એ પાછા આવવું પડે. તો સ્વામી શ્રીએ કહ્યું, that is how he said to these sadhus. But then he also added, પણ તમારે બાપાને કહેવાની કઈ જરૂર નથી. There's no need for you to tell Bappa, you know, સામેથી દોડ દાયા થવાની કઈ જરૂર નથી. So you can see this was the relationship between Yogi Bappa and Pramukh Swami. And so Swami Shri was going to go to Sarangpur, And just before he's about to leave, he went for Yogi Bappa's darshan, he did his danvats, and he asked for permission to leave. Ke ame jaiye che Sarangpur. And again, all the sadhus there, they went to Yogi Bappa. They said, Ke Bappa, ke Sarangpur to Sant Swami jaiye che, to can't we keep Pramukh Swami here? Keep Pramukh Swami here this time. Sant Swami is already going to Sarangpur, so don't worry, ke ત્યાં ઉત્સવ તો ઉજવવાનો જ છે. એ વખત Gondal મંદિરના મહંત આપણા બાળમુકુંદ સ્વામી. He also did a bit of agra as well. He said to Yogi Bappa, it would be nice if Pramukh Swami can stay. Again, this is all very respectfully, respecting Yogi Ji Maharaj and politely requesting him. And e vakat Sant Swami, you would think at Sant Swami he would say, it's good if Swami comes to Sarangpur. But Sant Swami himself also said, he said, Ke Bappa, he told Yogi Bappa, Ke Pramukh Swami bhale ahi rokai. It's okay if Pramukh Swami stays, because he also understood that all these santos want him to stay. And then at that time, Yogi Bappa, now remember this is Balmukund Swami, Sant Swami, all the sadhus telling Yogi Bappa. But Yogi Bappa is sukayu. Yogi Bappa hardly ever used to say no to these senior sadhus, but Yogi Bappa himself used his veto power. And he said, because he knew what was going to happen in the future, Ke Pramukh Swami ne a vakare Sarangpur java do. Let him go to Sarangpur this one time. Sant Swami ane bada raji thai. Sant Swami ane bija santo hari bhakta raji thai. And then he said, Ke avta varshti Pramukh Swami Ankut ai karshe. Look, from next year, Pramukh Swami will do Ankut here. Now this was Yogi Bappa. He didn't say it's in black and white, but not in super black and white. He said, avta varshti karshe. He said, from next year. It's not like avta varshe karshe, from next year. Avta varshti. And we all know that, and then obviously Swami left for Sarangpur. He got Yogi Bappa's permission. His only resolution was to act according to Yogi Bappa's wishes. But we all know that 3 months later, Yogi Bappa, he passed away. And then every single year after that, obviously when Swami Shri was in India, most of the time he would do Gondal in Annakut as per the tradition set by Yogi Ji Maharaj. So epan Yogi Bappa's prophetic words ke આવતા વર્ષથી આવી રીતે પ્રમુખ સ્વામી અંકુત અહીં કરશે. Going on to L24, there's a prasang of a Hari Bhakta. He was in Gondal. Yogi Bappa told him to go to Gadra and Sarangpur. His name was Jivan Bhai. Bappa celebrated Diwali Ankut in Sarangpur, and this Jivan Bhai, he came to Sarangpur. He came late. ભગવાન તો પહોંચી ગયા હતા, પણ સ્વામીએ બધી વ્યવસ્થા એમની કરી. And Swami Shri, through his life, this Jivan Bhai also understood that the Pramukh Swami is no ordinary sadhu. And he realized that through the prem of Pramukh Swami, emne Parameshwarna darshan thaya. Despite not being able to do darshan, Bappa arranged for him to go darshan to Jiva Kacha's darbar. He arranged for him to eat. He arranged for his vyavastha to go to Botad, etc., etc. So, e pramanepan, he experienced the love of Pramukh Swami at that time. And then Yogi Bappa was going to stay in Gondal. He sent Pramukh Swami to Ahmedabad to celebrate Prabodhini Ekadashi. And then after the Ekadashi in Ahmedabad, Swami Shri went to Vaso. ત્યાં પણ નવી જગ્યા લીધી હતી for a મંદિર. બાપાએ ત્યાં પણ પધરામણી કરી, સભા કરી in Vaso as well. And he also prayed કે વસોમાં પણ સારી રીતે મંદિર થઈ જાય, ત્યાં સભા નગર યાત્રા એને 50 પધરામણી કરી હતી. After Vaso, Swami went to Daban, Merav, and he reached Bochasan, where he celebrated the festival of Kartik Punam. Remember, Yogi Bappa would be celebrating these festivals in Amrad and Bochasan. Kartiki Ekadashi, Kartik Punam. But because he was in Gondal, he had sent Pramukh Swami for these utsavs. And we'll end with one last prasang. Ke in the holy presence of Yogi Ji Maharaj, ત્યાં પણ દેવ દિવાળી ગોંડલમાં એ ઉત્સવ થયો. અને ઉત્સવ વખતે many bhajans were being sung. One of these bhajans written by Nishkran Swami, which we've heard many times, Santate Swayam Hari. તો એમાં એક લીટી આવી, એવા સંત શિરોમણી ક્યાં મળે? Where can one find such an epitome amongst the sadhus? Such a great sadhu. Eva Santa Shiromani Kya Mare. So when Yogi Bappa heard the santos sing these lines, he turned to Hakka Bapu. And he said to Hakka Bapu, કે હકાભાઈ એવા સંત શિરોમણી કોણ? કે who is such a sadhu? અને હક્કા બાપુ, obviously he said કે બાપા એવા સંત શિરોમણી તો આપ છો. You are that Sant Shiromani, the highest amongst the sadhus. And at that time Yogiji Maharaj હસતા હસતા બોલ્યા, એવા સંત શિરોમણી આપણા પ્રમુખ સ્વામી છે. Such an epitome among the sadhus is our Pramukh Swami. So you can see that Yogi Bappa explained, હવે આ જે સંત તે સ્વયં હરિની વાત કરે છે એ તો ગુણાતીત સંતની વાત કરે છે. Who એ સંત સાથે એ ભગવાન સાથે એકતા છે એવા સંતને. તો એવા સંત શિરોમણી એ કોણ? તો યોગી બાપા explained to everyone, to હક્કા બાપુ, કે and the Haribhaktas, that such a Santa Shiromani is Pramukh Swami. So time and time again, Yogi Bappa was explaining the glory of Pramukh Swami. So today we conclude our second class for section L. And next time we'll start with Bappa traveling to Kolkata in December 1970. Shri Swaminarayan Bhagwan Ni Jai.